Okay, welcome back to Spirit Squared. I'm Andrew Darrington, your host. Tonight, we're here at the Humidor in Tyler. We've got a great guest here tonight. The Humidor is one of our sponsors. Thanks so much to Blake and Virginia for being sponsors of ours. We've got the Vault. Man, we've got a lot of new sponsors. We've got Ray Plunkett with Goosehead. We've got Thomas Red. Thanks so much for being a sponsor of ours. We've got Rex Consulting, and I'm missing one. Oh, the Hoot Holler, right here. Wearing them tonight. So Hoot Holler down in Gun Barrel City. They're a package store. If you guys need anything for the weekend, that's going to be where you want to go. They have a great selection. Take a drive down there. It only takes about 30, 45 minutes, and they're going to have the best selection. They'll take care of you for the weekend. You won't regret it. You're going to get personalized service, and they're going to be much better than the big box stores. Without further ado, before we get our introduction with our guests, let's talk a little bit about what we're drinking to start tonight. We've got Tears of Lorena, which is an extra añejo tequila, which means it's been in the barrel for a long time, any more than, I believe, 2 years. So this one's pretty dark, if you can see it, and it's pretty tasty. It's kind of like a bourbon drinker's tequila, and don't like it too much because it is a little on the pricey side, but you know, never know. I kind of swim around here and there and find bottles. So we've got a couple more that are going to be mentioned and featured on tonight's podcast. So tonight is comedian night, which I've been looking forward to. We've got Justin and PJ, who are both comedians here in Tyler and around the surrounding areas. True?
Correct.
Yeah, mostly right here. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about kind of where are you guys from, or you know, what brought you to being a comedian? Either one of you can start.
I've always found myself to naturally be quick-witted and funny. I was class clown growing up, and then it was always one thing that I figured I would enjoy. Actually, in high school, I wrote a paper about what our career path was going to be, and mine was about being a stand-up comedian on a cruise ship.
Okay.
That seemed like an amazing career.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, real life didn't allow for that to happen, so I've kind of rediscovered that passion now that I'm getting a little later in life and the kids aren't so demanding and a little extra free time, so I kind of just jumped in as a hobby and became very passionate about it and really enjoyed it to this point.
Right. What about you, PJ?
Well, I mean, I grew up around here, so I grew up. My earliest inclinations to desperately wanting to be observed, and I think were from church. I always wanted, like as a kid, I was like, oh, I want to be a youth pastor. But as it turns out, I don't want to be a youth pastor. I just want to talk into a microphone and have people listen to me.
Right.
That was the closest thing to a comedian I knew growing up, and so kind of it went a different path to public service, kind of social work stuff for a long time, and that was real beneficial to a lot of people, but man, I didn't like it. So I really got excited about comedy a couple of years ago, and there was a little club here in town called Rose City that opened up, and they'd been going for a year or so at that point, and they had a regular open mic, and I went up, and it went terrible, and I shook violently almost throughout the entire thing because I was just so nervous.
Right.
And I loved it. I was like, oh my god, that was garbage. Let's get better at this.
Yeah.
And so it was honestly the first time in my life I had ever experienced a feeling like that, where I was like, oh, this is what it is to love what you're doing.
Right.
And so from there, I had done a couple things before that, some storytelling things here in town.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to get to. Is like, there's a large leap between just maybe talking to a small group and getting some chuckles and laughs, kind of like here at the Humidor, you know, you can make 8 to 10 people laugh over a joke or maybe a funny punchline or maybe a zing. But it's a pretty large leap to get to where you're talking to a room full of people, 40, 50 people, possibly a couple hecklers and stuff like that. So was there some public speaking that happened before that? You said storytelling, obviously that kind of leads into performance.
Well, I had the opportunity. My girlfriend actually put me in contact with. There was an organization here in town called the Tyler Loop that was around for a long time, and they had a storytelling thing similar to, like, if you ever heard of it, like the Moth Radio Hour, something on NPR that kind of people would come on and just tell stories. Sometimes funny, sometimes dark, heavy, or whatever. And I signed up to do that, and I was like, okay. And so I wrote a funny story about going to a cockfight one time, and for work, not pleasure. And
Was it south of the border or north of the border?
It was in Chapel Hill. It doesn't matter. But it's a lovely area. It's it was late. It was late. But anyway, so I did that, and so I wrote like a 5-minute story for that.
That's awesome.
And there was about 7 or 8 other storytellers that I went on, and I was easily the funniest. But that's because I didn't know that it was supposed to be so serious, because theirs were all about like eating disorders and assaults and things like that. But I killed, so they were all a real bummer. But mine had a lot of whimsy, so that was fun. But did that, and I just I was like, oh, this is. It felt
fun.
It was like the first time I'd done. I was like, oh, that's the thing I always wanted to do.
Right.
And I waited till I was 36, like an idiot, and so got into it from there. So, and then just started going to open mics and getting more in love with it.
What about you, Justin? Did you have like some public speaking?
No. I actually had horrible stage fright.
Really?
I did. Yes, I was very good in person, but even in small groups of my peers that I knew, I got a promotion one time to a management position, and then had to speak to employees that I've worked with for years, and I was terrified as soon as I got in front of them and they were all staring at me. But you give me a circle with 3 or 4, I was golden. I was class clown. I signed up for the improv class at the understudy.
Okay.
I figured if I want to tackle stage fright, if I got some other people on stage, that would help me, especially with improv, because if it's not going great, you can take a step back before jumping right into stand-up. Because with stand-up, it's just you and the audience. There's nowhere to hide. And that helped me. And
you look like the guy that's on a cruise ship that's doing belly flops.
I am that guy.
Okay, so there's some.
It's just a general fear of the stage is what it is.
You see people that are really confident, whatever, and they won't touch. Like, you're like, hey, why don't you go up and just add it on my girl? Like, why don't you give it a shot? And they're like, oh, I would never. It's very weird, but I was a 36-year-old talking to a bunch of drunk 20-somethings, and I was petrified. And honestly, the only way to do it, or to get better at that, is keep going. You really got to breathe it out of yourself. So.
And it's gotten a lot easier now. I still have that adrenaline rush when I get on stage. Not 100% in control. We had an open mic last night, and one of my friends said, how was it? I was like, I have no idea. I'll have to go back and listen to the recording. I don't know if I did good or bad. I just know I got off when my time was up. I have no idea what I even said at that point.
Wow.
The preparation beforehand is nice to be able to lean on that, but still, once I get up there, the adrenaline's pumping, and the words are just flowing out of my mouth.
So are you concerned that you're going to say something wrong or do something wrong? Or?
Oh, definitely. Or forget what my setups are, or my punchlines, or something not work, and just freeze up. It's getting easier. I feel like I'm getting better with it. Just doing it, like BJ said, that's the only way is to get up there. But it is, it's still terrifying and challenging every time.
Yeah. So, talked a little bit about what led you to comedy. What did you have some comedic influences? I mean, obviously, we've all been exposed to comedy, movies and stuff like anything that you could pinpoint that you're like, I could do that, or certain comedians that maybe.
Honestly, from a young age, I was a comedy fan. I was privileged enough to have a black and white TV in my bedroom when I was in like elementary school.
Charlie Chaplin, right?
Well, I'm not that old.
Okay.
Don't let the
Three
beard fool you.
Three Stooges?
Saturday Night Live.
That was in black and white?
In living color. Well, when your TV's black and white, and it's all
He
black
was
and
just
white.
poor.
Yeah,
is what he's saying.
I was an elementary kid with a TV in my room, and in the '90s. So I mean, it was a black and white TV. We had color TV just for the living room. Simpsons,
Cosby Show, which ended up being even funnier.
Family Matters. I loved Urkel. I was a big Urkel fan.
Right.
Listening to George.
I see that in your stand-up.
Yeah.
Is that where "Did I Do That" come from?
That's it.
He says that a lot.
Oh, okay.
And do you all have any cheese? Big cheese.
I forgot he liked cheese.
George Carlin early on,
sure.
just the way he was able to talk, and I mean, almost like he was preaching, and it just made sense.
Very matter of fact.
Correct. Very matter of
dry.
fact. Yeah. And I mean, all the Jerky Boys, the
phone
phone
calls.
calls. Yeah. Roy D. Mercer.
Yeah.
Another one, I mean, just that's whenever I remember the
How big a fella are you?
pop knot on your head. Yeah.
Well, that's probably
I have not heard that.
So great. And a lot of that was, I had to pick so many CDs from Columbia House. So some of them turned into be comedy CDs, and then I would listen to them. But I mean, George Carlin by far is maybe one of my favorite. Similar, Chappelle can sit on stage and just talk. And even if I don't agree with his opinions, the way he's able to deliver it, I can see it. And he does a really good job at it. But just in general, I love all comedy. I mean, it's hard not to.
Right. Well, you mentioned a genre that you didn't like before we got started, but we won't go into that.
Well, that is women comedian. I mean,
it just doesn't come off.
Stay in the kitchen where you belong.
Right.
I couldn't disagree more.
We saw examples.
Just want to be clear on that.
We saw an example of that last weekend at the halftime show. That was Nikki Glaser was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Doing that halftime show.
I missed that.
It was pretty cringeworthy for sure. She was kind of making fun of one of the sports broadcasters.
Oh, well, yeah, she's like one of the most, like, maybe like the Tom Brady roast and stuff like that, like she absolutely destroyed.
Oh, yeah, great. And it was cringy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, comedy is, I don't know if it's in a, like, I don't know, so that was at a halftime show?
Yeah, it was.
That's kind of a weird place for a comedy show, to be honest. So, but yeah, no, she's like one of the most like successful and accomplished comedians there is. But
what about you? What were some of the comedic influences that you had?
Oh, I mean, I think like the first like cassette tape. No. This is slightly misleading. I grew up very, very Baptist. But no, I mean honestly, like the first cassette tape that I had, like that was a comedy album, was the only dirty Jeff Foxworthy album that he made. It was like, I think it's like one of his first ones, and after that he said he's like, no, I'm going to be clean, and he is, and he's fantastic.
Yeah. The second guy I was going to say is the dude that I don't know his name, but the dude that hits watermelons.
Oh, Gallagher.
Yeah, that's you right there. Yeah, for sure.
No. Yeah, like I like wearing this hat in Texas. It confuses people, and so I like to be an enigma. But
you see more people wearing it backwards than frontwards.
But that feels like a Sam Jackson move,
or like an LL Cool J or something.
It feels dishonest out of me. But no, like I had that cassette, the Space Jam soundtrack, and then and then I like. One of the some of my earliest like comedic experiences were like Christian comics, who are not really my vibe, but they kind of are still in the same way. Like Tim Hawkins was a guy that we had, like my youth group went and saw, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I worked at a church camp in college, and there was a comedian named by the name of Bob Smiley. Like he still does stuff and that kind of like Christian comic. And he was the first person. So I was working at this camp, And so I saw him like the first week, and he was great. He did like material and all this kind of stuff. But I never really realized that that's what comedians did.
Yeah.
I just thought he was
just talking.
like they were just being funny.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is magic, and that kind of thing. And then like this,
And that really happened.
yeah. And then like the second week, he did the same material, and I remember being so heartbroken at 19 and realizing I was like, oh, it's a trick.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this is prepared and this is material. But then there's also like, then once you're over that initial kind of like childish understanding, which honestly a lot of people think that if you don't know much about comedy. But no, but one of the people that was like a big influence for me, especially like in trying it, was Taylor Tomlinson. She was a Christian comic for a long time. Taylor Tomlinson and Pete Davidson, or not Pete Davidson, Pete Holmes.
Pete Davidson is not a Christian.
No, he's not. No.
Funny though.
But yeah, both of them, Taylor Thompson specifically, was a Christian comic. She worked that circuit for a long time, and then doesn't do that now. And Pete Holmes, grew up very evangelical Christian, and something they both did. And there are less of that now. They're both like spiritual in kind of their own ways. Yeah. But that's something that I kind of get. I get Gallagher and kind of edgy Baptist youth minister.
Right.
Like those are kind of the energies I think I put out a bit. And
or computer programmer.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Sure.
People think I like.
Or podcast producer.
Yeah, I know. I can't. I don't have the technical know-how or the faith to do a lot of these things. But no, they were. I remember watching Taylor Tomlinson's like Quarter Life Crisis. That special came out like right as the pandemic was happening, so it was like kind of what really launched like her into like a real public eye. And I was like, this is like a perfect hour of comedy. And I was like, she is 25,
right,
and I am 35, and I'm like, get off your ass, man. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like there's, and it was like she grew up in a church setting, and all that kind of, like I just really resonated with that. Like I was like, oh, I used for a long time like kind of the excuse. I was like, well, I didn't have the opportunities, and I was in a church, and there was like you got to be real, kind of conservative or quiet or those kind of things. You can't make too many jokes. It's a serious thing. And then I'm like, oh, but that person did it, and and she's amazing. Right. And I'm like, I have no excuses whatsoever.
Vault Arms is your premier destination for all things firearms. Extensive selection of handguns, rifles, shotguns, and accessories. Knowledgeable staff to assist you in finding the perfect firearm to fit your needs. State-of-the-art gun range equipped with the latest technology for a safe and thrilling shooting experience. Take advantage of our professional shooting instruction and training programs suitable for all skill levels. Host your next group outing, corporate event, or bachelor party at our spacious and secure shooting facility. Committed to promoting responsible gun ownership and firearm safety. Fully licensed and compliant with all state and federal regulations.
The Humidor is your online cigar retailing headquarters. Our experienced staff has spent years finding some of the best cigars from around the world to sell to our customers. If you're looking for an online cigar store that can help you find your next favorite smoke, welcome to the Humidor. We began the Humidor because of our deep appreciation of the finer things in life, a good conversation with friends, an aged whiskey, and, of course, a fine smoke. That's why, in addition to selling premium cigars online, we also operate a brick-and-mortar cigar lounge in Tyler, Texas. Our lounge is crafted to provide a classic ambience with modern sensibilities, and we've spent time ensuring that smokers and non-smokers have an enjoyable experience, whether they're there for a drink with friends or to enjoy the game.
Before we get into the next part, you're practically married, right? You've been
Correct.
You're a long
Never had
relationship.
a domestic partner.
Yeah, right. And then same for you, or no? Or
I'm happily divorced. And then I'm in a long-term committed relationship.
Gotcha.
For about the past 7 years.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk. I mean, they're supporters, and we can get into that a little bit later. I'm assuming that both of them are, very supportive of like this extra thing you do, because like you're going a lot of these stages, or I'm assuming late night initiatives, and then you're practicing setups and stuff like that. Let's get into like preparation a little bit. So you can't just show up on a stage and start telling stories, or start with, hey, anybody been to Detroit? You know, and start that stick that way. Talk to me a little bit about writing. How does it work? What does development of content look like for you guys?
So actually, I started just going on stage and talking. I had funny stories, and I would try that.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me JTV or something.
Oh, no. And that worked a little bit. I mean, it worked okay. It at least got me on stage doing it. But then, you know, you start seeing other comedians and then really seeing how much work goes into it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's one of the harder parts, is to sit down and write. And there's nothing, for me, more disappointing when I have something that I've written and I've refined and I've punched it up and then I say it on stage and it's crickets. It hurts. It hurts
because you see
bit.
it, you know, there being a different reaction, right?
Correct.
You write it up and you're like, damn, that's funny. You're kind of laughing to yourself.
Yes,
like,
oh, yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in this.
And then it's only funny to you, right?
Correct, yeah. And then it's not at all. But I use.
Are you taking notes throughout the day?
Oh,
or
just
you,
anytime
you have an epiphany of something, and you just kind of like write it down.
So I initially started anytime I would laugh about whatever's going on in my life or whatever happened, I would take just a quick note down to jog my memory. And I've made the mistake many a times. I was like, oh, I'll remember this later. And then it's gone. It just completely vanishes. And in doing so, I've read a lot more books on writing and just in general. I actually just write almost like a journal now, a couple of times a week, sometimes daily, just depending. Just not even trying to be funny, just capturing what happened in my life, and I get a lot of inspiration out of that. I'll come into jokes, not even trying to be funny. Sometimes I'll have something that I think is a funny joke maybe 3 weeks later, and I have additional content I can go back to, and then, you know, like especially with the kids, I have teenagers at home, so they're always giving me plenty of material, but if I don't keep track of it or write it down, then it's just gone and I forget about it. So I'm able to go back and reread, you know, what did they do 3 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden I turn it into, you know, maybe a 3-minute bit over one thing that happened on Wednesday, and I'm able to incorporate stuff from weeks before, get it all together there.
Yeah, I saw a funny video recently, big into reels, you know, those 90 seconds type things, maybe even less, where they had like 7-8 guys go into the grocery store to get pads and wings, or pads with wings, and they were all getting like these pads, like, you know, for the time of the month, and then a bag of wings. And all the wives were like, no, pads with wings. Like, they didn't even know they had kinds to add wings. I just thought it was funny. Anyway.
It took me a beat, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I got it.
So talk to me a little bit about how you write, or some of the things, methodologies. Is it much different? Is it different or same?
It's similar in some ways. I constantly will just, the notes app on my phone is a disaster. I mean, I try to categorize stuff every once in a while and that kind of thing, but I will just kind of throughout the day, like kind of constantly, like just, I'm like, oh, I had this funny thought or something like that. Or a lot of, you know, and sometimes if I'm in the car, I'll send myself a text message. I do that a lot. Audio record a lot. It's similar, like kind of like what you were saying, like just getting up on stage and like having a concept. Sometimes like do a little writing on stage. You're like, hey, this is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know exactly what's going to resonate with people, and so I'm going to just talk about this a little bit, and it's going to bomb because I'm not structuring this well, but I will find out what they thought was interesting about this, because sometimes and I just do that in conversation too. A lot of times, like somebody else, my girlfriend, and a lot of my other comic friends and stuff like that, but especially my girlfriend, she'll be like, "That's a bit." Yeah. Like, you know, just point out to it, like, because I'll just get going and talk about, you know, a frustration I have with, you know, donating plasma or something like that, and they're like, "That's pretty funny." And I was like, "Oh, I was just upset. Is that good?" And so, kind of the audience and just the people around you because like that is the tricky thing. Like one of the things you said just a second ago is like you can get real excited about something. That's because you have all the context for it.
Right.
And then, because there's some stories that I'd love to tell on stage, but I was like, there's way too much setup to this.
Right.
And like I'm like, I was like, I need an hour.
Yeah, this is a
to kind of-
3-minute conversation that's leading up to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
punchline that's kind of iffy.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if you knew me and knew all this stuff about me already, you'd love this story.
Right.
But you're not at family dinner.
Yeah.
I was like, so you have to provide. The only thing the audience has is the way you look immediately.
Yeah.
And then whatever you say.
Right.
That's kind of like the beautifully simple thing about stand-up is it's just you, the microphone, and these people.
Right.
And so you have to consider, you're like, oh, what is going to resonate with them,
Right.
and what is going to be confusing. Because
Right.
confusion will kill it.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
You talked a little bit about it. So, do you guys have like an audience that, or like a home audience, or maybe some confidants, other comedians that you bounce stuff off of? Like, hey, I think this is a bit. I don't know it for sure, but hey, this is what I'm thinking about. Or is it more just kind of like, hey, I'd rather just get up on stage and try.
We've got a great like comedy community here in Tyler. Like it's really started in the past couple of years, and now there's like 3 clubs here in town. I mean, there's kind of like 2 brick and mortar clubs,
Right.
And the one that I work with primarily now is called Cheese and Fest. A lady named Tony Robinson has kind of gotten that going more recently and stuff like that. We've done a lot of things downtown. Rose City. You used to, I think it was originally like Rando's Comedy House or something like that, and then it became Rose City.
Right.
And the guys that run that place really did a good job of kind of creating a space for a lot of these Dallas-based comics,
Sure,
and Austin-based comics to kind of come over and started developing some of that. And that's where a lot of us initially kind of came together. And then the understudy was, it's more of an improv club here in town.
Okay.
It's located over on Grande, kind of behind Chili's.
Now, when you say improv, is that more like whose line is it anyway type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are different versions of improv, but they do mostly short form there.
Okay.
They're starting to do some more long form stuff, which basically the difference is short form is games.
Okay.
Like whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
But kind of quick things, like
Yeah.
go down, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then long form is usually one kind of like cohesive story. A little bit, and so they do some pretty neat things around that, like Roll for Initiative. It's like a Dungeons and Dragons based thing that
Okay.
they've been playing around with. It's a lot of fun.
Like drunk history, I love that, man. It's like one of my favorite things.
Well,
in the whole world.
there are things that exist like that. They haven't gotten into that yet.
Yeah, because the closest one here, I was looking at it because it's one of my favorite shows, and the closest one is in Houston, and it's a long form improv. You take 5 shots, and then you have to like tell a story and remember it and all that crap, and it would be hilarious to watch.
Well,
that.
long form is more. There's a place out of Chicago called UCB. It was Upright Citizens Brigade, and if anybody remembers that from the early 2000s, 90s, and stuff like that. Or alternative weirdos and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So Middleditch and Schwartz is a Netflix special. It's got 3 episodes. That's a really good example of a good long form comedy, long form improv comedy. And then, like short form is more like whose line is it anyway? Wayne Brady, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like short bits. That are funny.
Yeah, and that's more like Second City. Like both of these places are kind of like the farm league for SNL.
Okay, gotcha.
But like Second City is more short form and sketch or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think they all do a little bit of everything.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so like.
But this improv is very short form, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's mostly that. Steve Hargrave is the like owner proprietor of that joint. He does a great job.
And you guys do quite a bit of stuff there, right?
I do open mics there Thursdays. Anytime I get invited for improv, that's where I took the improv class.
Gotcha.
Both level 1 and 2.
And those are offered to like the public. And
Yeah.
stuff like
So
that.
if I want to go and watch you pee your pants, then Thursday night.
Or if you want to become a person that pees your pants, sign up for an improv class.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a lot of fun, even if it's not something you want to do long term. It's something that's really.
I think it helps with brain activity and
Sure.
quick thinking, and also public speaking and teamwork. I mean, there's a lot of core to improv in order to achieve it at a higher level.
Yeah.
You got to be able to work together, and you got to be able to use multiple parts of your brain at the same time to not only remember the suggestions from the audience, but also what your teammates are doing. And
That's what I was going to ask is like, what are the emotions like when you're in the audience watching somebody either kill it or bomb it? Is it high, low, or you're like, oh, damn, or...
I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I've been doing comedy enough that I don't feel as much like an audience member.
Okay.
And so I do, I can really enjoy an open mic where we're all eating a lot of shit. Just because you're like, oh, everybody's doing bad tonight.
Right.
And you're like, oh, fantastic. Because it means you're trying new stuff.
Yeah,
and
sure.
it means you're stretching a little bit, and it takes bravery to do bad. It's like you're not trying to bomb, but when it happens, and you're just like, oh my god, that didn't work. There's the laugh that is the worst to get, or kind of stings the most when you're on stage, is when you tell a joke, you hit your punchline, and it's quiet, and then about 2 seconds later,
laugh.
no, it's the comics laughing at the fact that you told a joke that didn't work. And you're like, that laugh, that hurts. And I love doing it. Because I'm going to be up there in 5 minutes, and this crowd is dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're all going to be feeling this in a minute, and we're all going to go grab a drink after, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Then improv is such a different animal just because it's so collaborative.
it is.
And I almost hate it for that. Because I'm like, because anytime I've done an improv show, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend. I love watching improv. I don't do it too much of it anymore, just because I always feel guilty after, because you're on a team when you're doing improv,
right.
and I'm like, oh, I stepped on his punchline. Oh, I messed him up. And it's all about listening and supporting each other and all that kind of stuff. Whereas stand-up, you can just be wonderfully self-centered, and it's just so nice.
Yeah.
You know,
You're like the guy that held him back from getting out of the mystery room or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, I am the distraction in the escape room,
Right.
and I'm like, no, like we're gonna die here.
Right.
But the stand-up, I'm like, oh god, if I do bad, it's just me.
Just you.
Yeah. Like I mean, you want to be good, so the other people coming up,
Sure.
but it's your turn.
Right.
The turns are clear. So
Right.
I don't know. What's
For me, I think improv is not near as much preparation.
Yeah.
Because it's just on the spot.
Yeah, for sure.
So that quick wit is nice.
You're probably better suited for that at the current time, right? Or you're better, you like doing that, you're more prepared
Yeah,
to
I
do
love
that.
You're just
And it
playing.
takes a lot of pressure off of you doing it all, right?
Correct. Yeah, and again, like I said, if you swing and miss, you could take a step back. There's other people on stage to pick up. Not near as much.
Or just build off of like maybe that downside.
And
Well, it's like say, hey, you're having a really good night. I'm gonna let him cook, and you
Right.
can just kind of like you're like, hey, it's his time to shine.
Right.
And
for
it's interactive for the crowd versus most stand-up is not.
Right.
Preferably they.
And then the crowd kind of picks up on a favorite maybe or two.
Yeah.
And they want to hear, maybe you feel that vibe that they want to hear more from you because you are having a good night or whatever.
Well, and that is one of the cool things about improv is that you don't know who the headliner is going to be.
Yeah.
Whereas with stand-up, it's like this is the person. Like you're like, okay, we're gonna have a host, a feature, and then your headliner. So this person you don't have to care about at all. This person's a little bit better. Like that's what you're telling the audience. It may not be true.
Yeah.
And then this person's the best one.
Right.
Whereas like improv, it's a little more democratic. You
Right.
know, like everybody, they're like, oh, and it's cool because somebody that maybe newer at it or that kind of thing, the audience doesn't know. And so they're like, oh, that guy's just killing it tonight. And like you can just love that.
Yeah, and I'm sure the nerves are a lot less too because you've got a lot of people you can collaborate with. I mean, I don't know.
I think I'm nervous before either one.
Really?
I mean, with improv, I do settle in much faster.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where
You probably
especially
remember more too.
If I do. Yeah, I do. It's true. I do. But if it gets to the point where it's really cooking on stage and the audience is into it.
Yeah.
I almost forget the audience is there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's just, me and 3 other guys on stage working out whatever scene we're in, and the character takes over. And there's not, I mean, again, if you make a joke and it doesn't work on improv, I wasn't sitting on the patio punching it up for 3 days. There's not all this time invested like with my stand-up.
Well, and especially with improv, like you just have to trust you'll find the funny eventually. You're like, okay, we didn't get there yet. You got there, like with stand-up, it's people, they're like really want a punchline, or you want to laugh every like 15
boom,
seconds.
boom.
No matter, like if you're a storyteller, if you're a one-liner comic, if you're whatever, there's a pretty clear formula. With improv, you do have that kind of ability to wait a little bit longer. Yeah. But I find improv so much more stressful.
Really?
Just because like I have to remember everybody, like what did he do? Because sometimes they make it, they made an imaginary table, and I have to remember that that's there. And then it's like somebody was like, "Wow, you just walked through that table," and you're like, "Ah, crap, I screwed it up." And so I'm constantly.
You need to lower your give a damn. That's what it is.
But it's all about like being collaborative, listening, and also like feeding off of that stuff, and also generating at the same time.
Sure.
Whereas like with stand-up, like I mean, I do a lot of improvisation during my stand-up. I think you would probably agree with that. But I just have to remember what I said, and not what 3 other people are doing. You're like, okay, right now. Justin is an 8-year-old little girl, and I have to believe that. Whereas, like with stand-up, I'm like, it's just me, and I'm like, I can just go.
A lot of times I refer to improv as organic funny. Because you can, as an audience member watching it, you can see it build and build and build, and then a lot of times you just stumble into the joke.
That's
the magic. That's the magic. And, really good improv, they make you see the scene when it's just them on stage with no props.
I can see that being a little more romantic from a comedy side when you have there's 4 of you that are generating the story, and this like applause and everything. It's almost like being teammates, but if you bomb it, then you also.
Like if you bomb as a stand-up, you bomb. If you bomb,
I can understand the pressure.
So it's because like everybody else could have killed, and you for whatever reason just had a bad night. And like with improv, you're like, hey, we all had a bad night. And then you're like,
with improv, normally I just blame the audience.
That's
all the audience.
That's a great note for any aspiring comedians. Blame the audience. Don't work harder.
You're great. Just keep doing what you're doing.
They just don't get you.
If you are looking for a reputable builder with a proven track record and a client base to back it up, give Red Construction and Development LLC a call. Red Construction offers full design build services for new construction, custom homes, and remodeling with free site evaluations. They have an A+ rating with the BBB and are proud members of the Tyler Area Builders Association, Texas Association of Builders, National Association of Home Builders, and the Lindale Area Chamber of Commerce. Red Construction and Development LLC stands behind the exceptional quality of their work and have the expertise, the resources, and dedication to deliver the results you need on time and on budget. To learn more, give them a call at 903-630-8660 or visit them online at redconstructiondevelopment.com.
Hey podcast listeners, are you in need of some top-notch libations to elevate your next gathering? Look no further than Hoot and Holler Liquor Store in Gun Barrel City, your go-to liquor store for quality drinks. From smooth bourbons to crisp wines and everything in between, Hoot and Holler has one of the largest and most diverse selections in East Texas. Planning a special occasion? Let our experts guide you to the perfect bottle. You'll receive excellent customer service not offered in the big box chains. Visit Hoot and Holler today and let the good times flow.
I'm going to transition. You said you wanted a ride.
I do.
I brought a ride with me. This is one of my better rides, Michner's 10 ride. I've already made a pour. It's one of my favorites. I think you'll like it a lot. I'll pass it over there. Just take whatever.
Just
now.
up to there.
Yeah. Oh, well, how about less than that?
Just a dabble, dude.
Just the bottom out.
That tequila was great.
Yeah, man.
I'm not really much of a
amazing.
tequila. That's yeah, like I'm not much of a tequila guy, but that sounds like a sweet tea
Tears
version
of the Morena.
Yeah,
so
it was really nice.
We're already having people cry
I know,
as we go through this. Okay, so let's talk about some of the experiences that you guys had. Let's talk about the worst experience first. Look, and I also have here, maybe some of the travels that you guys have gone to. So you could have had really good experiences close to home because maybe there's some compassion. No, I'm kidding. Maybe you did really well, or maybe you tried your luck, maybe doing an open mic on a trip or whatever. I don't know. Talk to us a little bit about good and bad.
So, all of my experiences are here local. Okay. Like I said, I'm an aspiring open mic comedian.
You're in it, baby.
Yeah,
you're coming.
I'm at the.
Just nobody cares about you yet. Yeah, but you're doing it.
It only takes one good YouTube reel, one good YouTube short to be the next hot thing. So
yeah.
That's what,
like that hot tour girl.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
She's going on tour, baby.
I mean, I've been practicing my hawk tuah. It still sounds Japanese every time I deliver it.
She is actually really funny.
The toe mater the other day got me.
She's just kind of naturally very funny.
Yeah.
So somebody get her a joke book, and she's.
So everything's been local.
Everything's been local.
Has there been one night where you're just like, man, it's not. I'm not doing.
Oh
it
yeah,
well.
there's been plenty of those.
Or one night where you're just like, man, everything's fire.
I think, both. I mean, and a lot of it is, like I said earlier, I have no idea if I did good or bad until I go back and listen to the tape. It's still, I think the fight or flight kicks in when I get up there. I hear the name call and I get up there and I turn and there's people that are staring at me.
Yeah.
And it's just, the adrenaline kicks in and I just kind of go. I have changed my process a little bit. Initially, I was real heavy on the back end of writing everything out and working on it all the way up until open mic. And what I took away is when I got on there, I was so concentrated on remembering how I wrote everything that I wasn't delivering. I was just...
It just wasn't...
Correct, yeah.
It was very robotic.
A speech, correct, yeah. And I'm in my mind about like trying to keep it together.
Right.
So I still write them out when I get a premise that I like. I'll still write them out, but then when I go on stage, instead of having all of that memorized, I'll have a couple of bullet points that I know I want to hit. And that's worked good. I've gotten a lot of jokes just off the fly on stage. I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, I had never wrote that down, but I got a laugh. I'm going to add that in there, and then it comes. And then the more you do it, the transitional, there's points where the audience will say something, or a comedian before you may make a point, and it triggers something that you have stored away that you tried maybe 3 months ago, and you're like, oh, well, let me try this again. One of my most disheartening ones is when I have a joke, and I've done it a handful of times at open mics. Again, open mics are mainly practice. It's where
it's working out.
But I've had ones where jokes would land, and I'd get it a couple of consistent times where I get a laugh every time, and then you do that joke and nobody responds to it. And it's like, why? Why did it work all of these times and then just not work this time? What was different? What was the vibe? Where was the crowd at? Why did it work so well other times? That's the hardest for me. The bombing doesn't bother me. I do not like the comic laugh. That one, when you hear that,
it's just a beat later, and you're like, "Shut up, Gary."
Yeah. Tyler, to me, is the loudest. He's a great comedian. He's funny. But
Tyler Elliott.
Tyler Elliott, very funny guy. He is. What is the catchphrase? He's the pillar of the community, or the. Come on.
I've never heard anything like that. But no, he's one of the most established comics here in town because he's been, I think, doing it for about 12 years. And that kind of, before anything existed here. Tyler Elliott and a buddy of his named Brandon Davidson. who does some stuff locally too. Every once in a while, he doesn't do it as much anymore. But yeah, like they're kind of people have somewhat been like they're like the Godfather of Tyler County, which is a title I don't know that either of them want. But they're both very good comedians, and they've been doing it a long time.
Well, you've been doing this a little bit longer. I mean, I'm sure you've had quite a bit more experiences as far as like good and bad, and maybe some traveling too.
Yeah, a little bit of travel. So yeah, like most of my stuff has been here in town. Like I've got some things coming up in Dallas, and I've done a couple of things at like Dallas Comedy Club, which is in Deep Ellum, a really cool little club there. They've been nice enough to give me a couple spots, and I've got. Those have been really cool just because that was like a club that I went to before I did comedy. I was like, this is a stage I want to be on. Yeah. Like that would mean something to me, and like it's a simple club. It's really cool. Go there. Yeah. So I got to do a show there New Year's, and then I'm doing a show there I think October 5th. Okay. With several comics, but the guy putting on the show is a guy named Miles Francis out of Dallas. Super funny. And so those kinds of things are really cool. I like the little. A lot of the clubs are kind of small and simple. My girlfriend and I were in New Orleans, and they've got obviously a lot going on in that town in terms of entertainment. But there was a New Orleans House of Comedy, which is this real small little club. You've been
there. My folks live in New Orleans.
Oh, okay, cool. So I had done a show, or actually I had watched a show here in Tyler with a comic based out of New Orleans, a guy named Ryan Rogers, really funny guy, and I talked to him after the show, just told him I was a comic, like he didn't see me perform or anything like that, and I just, when we were in town, I was like, hey, can you maybe let me perform on a mic or something
3
like
minutes
that?
or...
Yeah. And he gave me 2 spots, just in this little club and stuff like that. And it's one of the things that, there was about, 10 or 15 people there, but it was like immediately, like all the comics were like, oh, hey, it's like so good to see you. And I didn't know this guy, like really well or anything like that. We had like one pleasant conversation, and then that's one of the things that can be really cool. There's definitely drama and infighting with comics a lot.
Sure, of course.
But there's a lot more
camaraderie.
And like because we're all in the same boat. And so we're like, hey, like we know what it's like to not really be valued. And so definitely that was one of my favorite experiences, was just like immediately going there and like them kind of being like, hey, can I get you something to drink? Like, they're like, can you go up right now, or we're gonna do another show after this? Do you want to do another like 5-10 minutes? And it was like, yeah, like, this is awesome, and like so much of that just out of the gate in like kind of like an immediate like brotherhood and like kinship, and I love that stuff. And yeah, just like meeting Nikki Dips is a comic here in Tyler. She's been coming around like a year, and like we've kind of like become like besties, just through doing comedy and all that stuff. So like those kinds of things are like my favorite. Like really and I'm not mentioning some names just to bother some people. Jared and Tegan. All right, are you okay? Also Clint. Good God, quit being babies. Yeah, so no, like it's like those are kind of my favorite things. There's so many bad ones. Right. I mean, like it's just, and you just have to kind of be like, that was awful.
The comedian laugh.
Oh yeah, the comedian. I mean, like there's still like a bit of a camaraderie there, So like that can be kind of nice. I've done open mics in a town I'm not from when I don't have somebody with me, are maybe the lowest feeling in the world. So like I went up a few times to Dallas Comedy Club and did their open mic, and like the first time you kind of sign up to those, like you're 28th on a list, or Hyena's Comedy Club over in Fort Worth, like doing that mic. Sometimes you're going on like 1 a.m. and you're talking to like 2 people that are only there because they're the only 2 people behind you,
right?
And it is soul-crushingly difficult. Just because you're like, oh my god, because they don't know you,
Right.
and like somebody's got to go last, and so those things can feel very. You're like, I am a 38-year-old man. What am I doing?
Right.
You're like, I'm currently at a comedy club next to a cheesecake factory, and I really, really want to work here because I think it's awesome. Also, oh my god, you have kids. Like you're like just going like, and so you're like, and I just ate shit in front of no one.
And then I think I smelled pee on my way up.
I'm just saying, you're just like, oh, like you definitely. I mean, I've definitely cast myself out on a car ride after a bad set, and just been like, why would you do that? You know, that kind of thing. So I'm probably my worst critic.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
The car ride home after a bad set is never
You're just, especially when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like that sad drive to Buc-ee's at 2 in the
Right,
morning,
right.
and you're like, because you can't afford a hotel. Like you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're an idiot. You have a day job. Just go to work and be happy with that. But yeah, so those can be the lows. But
For sure.
they're worth it.
Yeah, for sure. We talked a lot about the local scene. Is there anything to add? Like, it sounds like there's 2 or 3 really solid places where comedians can go. What's the process if somebody's listening and they're thinking about getting on stage, or they want to talk about something, maybe going somewhere and kind of watching it and feeling those emotions?
I work primarily with a comedy production company here in Tyler called Cheese and Fest Comedy, put on by Tony Robinson. I host a open mic every Wednesday at True Vine on the Square, right here in downtown.
Okay.
7 p.m. And if anybody wants to try it, sign up or just come watch. It's at 7 p.m. downtown Tyler.
Yeah,
in
the
Plaza
Dixons are
Tower.
great people, man. Good people.
Yeah, they're awesome to work with. We've been doing that now for about a month. It's a lot of fun. Open mic and cheese. I'm usually there to host. You can message me on Facebook if you want to sign up.
Yeah, we'll add your link to whenever we get this uploaded.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. And then also, if you just want to find me before said show, please come out, buy a beer. It'll be great. And then we also have a show at True Vine at the Earl Campbell location on October 4th. With a comic named Tony Casillas.
Okay.
He's one of the comics that is at the Comedy Mothership. He works there, Joe Rogan's club. So, which is a tough club to get a job at. And I've seen Tony a few times, and he's not a personal friend or anything like that, but like very funny comedian. So we're excited about that. So that one will be kind of a PG show. So because there's kids there, so that'll be great
For sure.
And then on October 18th, Cheese in the Fest is doing a show at the Texan in Athens.
Okay.
Another showcase show. And then on the 19th, we're actually having a comedy festival here in Tyler. In a few different locations. I think the Liberty, and then also East Texas Brewing. And then I also think the top of the parking garage, there will be a Rose Parade.
Parade?
Yes. So it's the same day as the Rose Parade, and this is an homage to all the Rose Queens, not a mocker. And so, but yeah, you can get tickets to that now. There's going to be, I think about 30, 40 comics coming
The 19th is an all-day event.
Yeah, it's an all-day thing. You can get tickets to the individual shows or an all-day pass.
Right.
You can check that out on the Eventbrite or Cheese and Fest comedy. On Facebook or Instagram. But yeah, I guess I'll send you some links.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like we're going to have quite a few links.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right, no problem.
But we got a bunch of stuff going on there, and so Cheesin' is a little more of a guerrilla warfare kind of operation right now. So there's not a specific brick and mortar thing, but most of the consistent stuff is Wednesdays. At True Vine on the Square.
Okay.
Yeah, come see us.
Which we did that last night.
Yeah, we did that last night.
It's been a great atmosphere. It's fairly new. It's about a month now.
Yeah, we've been doing that there for about a month.
It's been a great atmosphere each time. It is PG-13-ish.
Yes,
Which
So,
is
take it easy on the F-bombs.
That's a welcomed challenge writing.
For sure.
It is definitely more difficult trying to keep it cleaner to deliver there. But it's been fun. It has been fun. And Cheese and Fest, I think, overall is kind of comedy by comedians.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of like a boo-boo of local comedy. It's like,
I don't know what that means, but
for us, by us.
Okay. Yeah.
I went straight to like long shorts.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what
are we doing?
that's-
Playing street ball?
Yeah, like
it's a little and one.
I was like, that's what poor kids bought, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
You fly overseas and you're like, damn, where'd you get that? I don't know, a box showed up. Right.
It was airdropped.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely Tony's a comic. She did a bunch of stuff at the Comedy Mothers, and she would go to Kill Tony. I don't know. If you
Oh,
ever
yeah,
seen that
of course.
show?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was one that
She got picked.
Yeah,
out of the
she's
bucket.
gotten picked. I think once or twice or that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
she went for
open mics, improv, they do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
There.
It's a terrific.
It's a very edgy show.
yes,
for
very
sure.
much so.
It's fun. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
and there's a
Tony
lot
gets
of.
it, yeah.
I've heard kind of a mixed bag from comedians on their perception of
Yeah.
that, because they don't like the instant fame that people get from, like, I like rocks, okay, well now he blows up, and it's like, well, wait a
but
minute,
that-
this
it can't-
guy
it can't matter.
liked rocks,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden he's on everything, and he's getting
Well,
his
I
own
think-
set and all
yeah,
that.
so,
I mean,
yeah, Camp
I've been
Patterson.
putting in 5 years, and my stuff's great.
Yeah.
And
well,
I
I think he was doing comedy in Florida and
Right.
stuff like that for a long time, and that's I think a lot of that I think is somewhat sour grapes.
Yeah, it's jealousy. It's jealousy.
Yeah, and also
That's what
like,
it is.
it's like it's fair, but also like Camp Patterson I think is a really good example. They were like, I think initially I was like, okay, this guy's funny, but like, oh, okay, and then you see him perform,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, he's doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
But he just does such a good job
Right.
of kind of hiding that
Yeah.
in his persona
Sure,
and that
sure.
kind of thing. But like writes all the time, is always doing new stuff. That's one of the things that's really interesting about Kill Tony is they like the regulars on there have to constantly
Yes.
curate.
A new
Yeah.
minute every week.
Yeah.
I mean, a minute doesn't sound like a
Right.
lot, but it's
Right.
hard,
Yeah.
to shrink something down to a minute and hit
Right.
punchline after punchline, and then to come up with a new premise every week.
Right.
And it's definitely
Yeah.
challenging.
Well, and we've got several Kill Tony performers and other comedy mothers and people coming for the Cheese and Fest thing. So if you're a big fan of that kind of stuff and everything in between, we're going to be having that. But she was a big fan of that. I think that's where she kind of fell in love with like the idea of like starting this production company and getting that going.
They had a show maybe a month ago downtown at
The Greyhound Inn.
the Greyhound
Yeah,
Inn.
that
That
one was so much fun.
That was a lot of fun. That's
Yeah.
a great little venue they have set up there. That was a good time. Enjoyed that.
So we did some stand up in an old bus station, which
Okay.
now is an Airbnb, and it was a blast. We had a bunch of other local comedians and a guy. I forget everybody else, but Fonzo Crow is a comedian out of Dallas, and he headlined that. He was amazing. Really, really funny guy. But yeah, so
We
it's
have
really
there's
cool.
opportunity Monday nights for open mic comedy, and if anybody's interested in giving it a try or
Where's that at?
coming to listen, you have 2 opportunities on Monday at Rose City
Okay.
downtown, and then also Where's Rufus.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting. Where's Rufus? I like that it presents a challenge of not having a captive audience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are there for Monday Night Football or to
Right.
play pool or to
Drink
have
and
some
eat.
drinks after work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of challenging when you get on stage, and versus when you go to a comedy club, like you go to Rose City, everybody's in a seat staring at you.
Yeah, it's set up like a theater, whereas like, so like it is implied they should be paying attention to you. Whereas
Correct.
Rufus, you're like, I gotta get your attention. So you
Yeah.
gotta work.
So it's a good-
You gotta
it's a
work
good-
in different ways.
It's a good challenge, It's a little rewarding when you see them turn around from their pool game and just stand there holding their pool stick and
Yeah,
watch you. You're like,
if I
it's
can
like
get-
a fish on,
Yeah, if I can get someone to look up from their drink and be like, "What the hell did he just say?" Like I'm like, "Gotcha." So
and then So that's Monday night, then Wednesday night at True Vine, and then Thursday night open mic at Understudy, again back behind Chili's. So that's incredible for locally to have potentially 3-4 opportunities a week to get on stage and try material.
More than most, right?
Yes.
I mean, especially like so. If I were to walk into, let's say,
the Exchange has one on Sunday.
So like if I walk in on a Wednesday.
Monthly, I think.
If I walk in on a Wednesday at True Vine and I sign up, and let's say I've maybe been on once or twice, then I may be 4th or 5th on stage, right?
Yeah.
And whereas if I sign up in a big city, I could be 30th.
30th,
correct. And I'm spending one, like you said, 1 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah, I do.
On a Wednesday night, what's typical? 10? Or do you have to shut it off?
Oh no! So we've been going from about 7 to about 8:45. And then the joint closes down at about 9. Like the first week we had about 18 sign up as far as comedians, and so that's cool. There's a pretty big comedy community here in Tyler, and one of the reasons I do online signups is I know for me, I'm a single dad, trying to know when you're going to go up and all that kind of stuff. Not knowing if you're going to get there in time to sign up and that kind of thing is stressful. So we're some of the elderly comedians here in town. There's a lot of folks in their 20s and they're like, yeah, I can just be there, whatever. And I'm like, that's cool for you, buddy. But I have to pay taxes. And so there's that. But that works out pretty well. So that was kind of the first week, and then we've had about between 10 to 15 sign up, and then
that's awesome.
A pretty good little crowd downtown, and we're hoping to keep growing that. And I know that there's more people that want. I love people that come to watch open mic comedy just because I was like, I know you want to do it.
Right.
I know you want to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, just do it. Just
prep it.
And I was like, the worst thing that's going to happen is that somebody's not going to laugh at you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, and nobody's going to shoot you after. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
True Vine and Rufus both. There's no cover charge. There's no minimum drink purchase, so you can just come check it out, see if you like it. If you want to hear comedy, sometimes you get some really funny comedians up there. They have
absolutely.
They have sets that are killer, or maybe stuff that they've done multiple times and over the years, and they're just bringing it back.
Or moldable stuff.
Correct.
Like, hey, I think here's something that I could add, or what help you with.
I genuinely think anybody could be a comedian if they wanted to be, because it really is about practice and work and writing and stuff like that.
And timing.
I think there is like a base level of you're like, are you kind of funny or no?
Right.
There's so many different ways to approach it, but you just have to have the dream and to be dumb enough to keep going. And so that's
absolutely.
I was like, it is the suffering I'm willing to do, and I'm like, okay, I won't go for a jog in the mornings, but I will humiliate myself on a daily basis.
Right.
I think of it like golf. It only takes one good shot to make me fall back in love with golf. It only takes that one joke that lands and gets that response, and then I'm right back in, and then I can bomb the rest of the set.
I mean, that was one of the things that made me realize I need to find something I'm passionate about. Because I would watch my girlfriend. She's a pediatrician.
Okay.
And it's not super comedic a lot of the time, but I would just watch her, and she loved her job, and I did not understand that. I was like, you love your work. I was like, that's confusing to me. And then she really encouraged me. One of the people that really encouraged me to get into this and try it. And I'm like, oh, this is how you do it. And whatever that thing is that lights you up, you're like, what you find at that one time, go do the shit out of it. And I want that for everybody. Maybe that's comedy, maybe it's not. It's fortunately not for most sane people because it's ridiculous. But I love it. And it comes with a bunch of hassles and a bunch of other stuff, but it's my favorite thing in the whole wide world, and I want to do it till the day I die.
It's hard to describe that feeling when you put in the work and the joke lands and you get a response, and I can't think of anything better currently going on than that happens.
Have
Well,
you
I
had
can-
sex before? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's pretty
I
cool.
mean, yeah, I can think of quite a few other things that would be up there a little bit past that.
I was like, this is pretty good.
And that, and maybe delivering a speech, and then I get paid to do it. I mean, that'd be pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then, or if I'm doing a speech and having some things happen under the podium, that sounds pretty good
Well,
too.
there you go.
Yeah. So, like police academy or something.
You downloaded a VPN.
Exactly. So we talked a little bit about the local deal. How big is the gap between what you guys are doing locally and what you see in the professional comedic environment? Like, I'm putting it in terms. I am a golfer, and I've tried to make it professionally. And the gap between just kind of the day-to-day golfer, and then the guy trying to make it, who was me, and then the pro, it's light years apart. Like the talent needed. So some of it is from a golfing standpoint. A lot of it's practice. Some of it's hereditary, just having it, and then some of it is just innate, where you're absorbing from a lot of other people, and you're getting it from other people. How far apart is like just getting up and having fun and trying material and doing things, and maybe going to New Orleans every now and again and trying things in Dallas and getting up, and then being on a stage doing maybe an hour show, or maybe something that's not necessarily syndicated, but maybe just like where you can make it where it's a full-time gig. How far apart is the skill set, talent, writing, and having it?
It's like one of the early things I had just kind of like heard that I thought was interesting was just kind of an analogy. It's just like comedy's kind of like a pool, like a public pool. Like we can all get in it, and then you're like, some of us are kind of down here, like we're still in the steps, we're in the shallow end,
Right.
just doggy paddling and figuring it out. And then you've got, folks like Taylor Tomlinson or John Mulaney or Amy Poehler or whoever are doing, Dave Chappelle doing, flips off the high dive.
Right.
But like they used to be on the steps.
Sure.
And so I think, a lot of what makes a lot of those guys successful is just they just kept going. And they just never gave up, and they just kept doing stuff. And they were like New York and Chicago and LA, especially, like those comedy scenes, you can get on stage, 7 times a night, for little things. Not that that's easy, but like we're talking about how great it is to have like 3 or 4 opportunities a week.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes throwing away anything
Yeah.
personal.
Right, and they have, in those towns and stuff like that, they've got more tourists, and so you're getting to engage with like a whole bunch of people. But it depends on kind of like, I want this to be my career, and I would be happy to be able to pay my bills with it. And so like for me, I'm like, like if I make $70K a year at one point, cool. Like I said, girlfriend's a doctor, I'll be fine. So as long as I have enough to support me and my kids, that's kind of like, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I'm doing something that is important work, but it's maybe not like my greatest passion in life. It's not what I want my legacy to be.
Sure.
And so for me, like I've met a bunch of just touring road comics, and they make a living at it. It's just what they do. And
Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, they're like playing bush league baseball.
Well, I mean, they're
just
touring
traveling
clubs.
around.
I mean, there's like Dave Attell is he's one of the most like well-known club comics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I guarantee if you talk to somebody that doesn't really know much about comedy, they're like, who?
Yeah.
And he's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And like there's so many like
super
that.
smart.
Yeah.
Very funny.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like he's a comedian and all that. I mean, one of my favorite comics who's definitely gotten more notoriety in the past like 5 or so years is Mark Maron. Like he's one of my favorites, but he nobody gave me about him for years.
Yeah.
Didn't mean he wasn't good. It just meant nobody cared.
Right.
And so like it's harder to grade, I think, comedy, because it's like, okay, like why is this person hitting right now?
Yeah.
Like maybe they're really like just they're the right person at the right time, and so it's just working. Like I cannot remember her name. She's a Southern woman. She's extremely funny, but she was doing comedy for 20 years, and she's 50, and then she broke. She had a clip go viral, and now she's like, she was on Seth Meyers last night.
Yep.
Make it happen. So,
I think it's definitely obtainable. I think it's one thing I enjoy it, is knowing that there's a path there, and it starts with just trying it and putting the work in. And you see everybody that you see is great started at the same place. There's really no head start in comedy. You have to get on stage. I mean, some of them have the it factor, but I think right now we're in a great time. I think we're starting to see a comedy boom similar to the early '90s. I think with everything we've been through the last 4 or 5 years, I think people are starting to open their eyes more to.
The other thing go ahead.
I think people are starting to open their eyes, maybe not so uptight.
Lighter side of life.
Correct, yeah. And what Joe Rogan's doing down in Austin, bringing that community there is great. Kill Tony's there. I mean, there's a handful of nationwide touring comedians that now live in Austin. That's really neat to see. But I mean, even the guys.
Ron White.
I love the fact that, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this. Maybe I'm saying I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of legacy action happen. Where you see it in sports, and you see it in maybe politics, and you see it in other, like where you have, Dad did it, and so I'm going to have a leg up. And so you don't see that activity, even in, for me, golf or for whatever. I don't see that kind of
nepotism.
Maybe or like accelerated success, because access is a given. Now you have certain comedians that may have some family that are in other positions, whether it be they're a reporter or they're this, that, and the other, or they're a doctor, and then they want to do it and they aspire to do it. Maybe they have some access financially, or they have an opening that's maybe a little larger than some others,
right?
So they can try it. Maybe they can commit to it a little bit longer. But you don't see. I haven't seen the nepotism or the legacy type of ushering.
Yeah,
I've seen
audience
other,
doesn't care who your dad is, really.
Right.
I mean, they're like, who the hell are you?
Right.
So I think, that's an interesting point. Like, I'm like, you don't see, you don't hear much about Ron White's kids.
Correct.
Or any of that
or do
stuff.
you see them like following in his footsteps?
Right.
Like, hey, I want to be a comedian too.
Yeah,
He's probably saying, don't do this at all, because it's going to cause you to be alcoholic, and then create a non-alcoholic liquor. Right? That's what does he have now? He has
I don't know about
no,
this.
I think he has like some hemp or something that he's.
Probably.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he stopped drinking.
He's not drinking.
He's like,
he either has a
sober now, so I just eat
alcohol, or he has
mushrooms.
some hemp or microdosing or
Right.
something. Yeah, one of the three.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't follow it too well, but yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, like I don't know. I had a comic say to me one time when I was kind of maybe a little bit bemoaning, like, there's like some people that are really talented that I just don't feel like are getting their due. And I don't know, I can't remember this comic's name, but he was just a guy I was talking to, and he was like, everybody's kind of where they should be.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe you're not blowing up right now, but like you might later, you might not.
Yeah.
And I think it's a decent way to approach it. Because otherwise, I think getting bitter is an easy trap to fall into in comedy. And I think just being a little stoic about it. You're like, hey, I'm going to do my good work. I'm going to try to make this good, put out quality things, and kind of trust my material and trust that I believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And hopefully the audience is there with it too.
Yeah, I think genetically you can pass on a trait of being jovial or funny, kind of in certain ways.
but not being comedic. I don't know if that's something that is passed on. Maybe it is. I don't know.
That is, I think, a skill.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because like I was always,
it's a knife. You have to polish it.
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
sharpen it.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of like have the dull side, and you have to have the sharp side.
It's much easier to be funny in conversation than it is to be funny on stage.
Every single one of my friends is funnier than me.
Yeah.
But I'm better at stand-up than they are just because I've done it.
Yeah.
And because I practice.
Well, you're probably a little more comfortable in your skin too.
Yeah, on stage and stuff like that. But like, oh my god, I've done a couple of bits before that I've just straight up, I was like, I'm stealing that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're not a comic. I'm like, that's mine now. I was like, that was me in that jail cell.
You line up all my friends, and most of them are smarter than I am for sure. And if we go in, thank you. And you're right. Correct. And so if we go into a mystery room and there's 6 of us there, they're all going to figure out all that crap way faster than me, and I'm going to be the one that kind of tags along to say, hey, do you need somebody to shoot a gun to hit a stuffed animal or something like that?
You provide a utility.
Yes, exactly, utility. Right, but out of all of them, I'd be the first one to stand up on the stage and tell jokes or deliver a eulogy or a wedding or whatever. I mean, they'd be shaking in their boots to do that. So it's just a trait that my dad probably wouldn't like it. He'd probably do it, but he wouldn't like it. I'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. A lot of people wouldn't enjoy it. It wouldn't be fun for them. They would just be like,
well, I mean, comedy has grown too to kind of especially like podcasting.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, just for sure, you know, is one of the comedy, and like I mean, like Bert Kreischer, I think is a really good example.
You're not gonna take your shirt off, right?
I mean, I have a similar build.
Don't do it. It's his joke.
It's his bit.
His one joke. His one joke, right?
His one joke. For Nikki Glaser. You're like, I love your
joke.
Right? So like, I was like, when you guys are bachelor, I was like, she's so good. But like, but no, like he's someone I think is a great example. Like, you know, because obviously, you know, he's an amazing storyteller and stuff like that. But he's not everybody's cup of tea. But I dare you to watch anything that guy does on a podcast and not just be like, like I'm like, he's just fun. He's just happy. He's like so much energy and like
perky.
Yeah, like
interesting.
I mean, and clever, interesting, and then also somehow dumb as a bang. Like it's so perfect. And it's like
and Tom is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
He's like
so
a realist and just kind of down to earth and like, what the hell are you talking about? I love it.
I know. Yeah, like
it's a balance chart for sure.
100%.
I feel the same way with Theo Vaughn.
Yeah.
His stand-up, some of it's okay, but it's not my favorite. But his podcast,
you put him in a podcast,
communication, he's great.
He does a podcast by himself. Like that's difficult.
And takes calls, live calls.
Oh my god,
which is crazy.
And he's just insanely good.
Yeah, the Bobcat call was one of my favorites.
Like, he's just an atypical thinker. Is how I've heard him described.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and then he can come up with analogies, and people really like that. It's very insane analogies that are fun. All right, so do we want one last pour? I think we've got enough. One last pour. This is the old horse
had, right?
This is the one already had. You already have it, but you can have it again. I mean, we're going to kill this bottle. This one's near and dear to me. This is East Texas Whiskey Club. This is the Old Forester. I called it the Badger Barrel because the guys there at the Whiskey Club called me the Barrel Badger. I guess you don't get any. Sorry. Right.
No. Yeah, that's what I was like. That's not two.
Do you want one of the? Do you want some more tequila?
You know, I'll take a little bit more tequila.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, I'll open it up. It's kind of a tricky bottle to open. Here you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
No.
We all know comedians drink a lot, so you gotta drink up.
I'll be honest. It makes me sometimes drink a little bit less.
Yeah.
Well, just because like you want to be sharp on stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are other comics that go up there in a more inebriated state, but like for me, like I don't.
You're not as punctual and sharp.
Yeah, like you just I don't want anything to like necessarily dull me when I go on stage. Like maybe a beer or like one drink before or something like that. But in general, kind of nothing. And then after, usually, like, I mean, you know, sometimes you get a drink or something like that after, but you're like, I'm just kind of wired.
I prefer a couple before. I do like to take the edge off.
Yeah, and yeah, like that's something I've heard some people like it's like a formula. They're like, I want to be this high when I go out. I'm like, I want to be very clear and engaged with the audience the whole time. So, and also like I think my hair and silver little hat make me look a little stonery, but like as soon as I get going, they're like, this guy's a dad and we're like, I'm pretty sure he goes to Wednesday night service. You know, like and they don't. That's not.
There's nothing wrong with the leaf.
No,
maybe in Texas. You know,
it's not for me.
According to the 2018 Farm Bill, we have legalized hemp consumption and sales, which is
Not so much in
interesting.
Smith County.
There's several stores.
Oh, there's several stores, but the DA Herald.
Yeah, you're gonna go.
You can buy it. You just don't want to get caught with it.
Mr. Smith is going to take you to Smith, right? All right, so let's talk about new material. So you guys are obviously always trying to create new material. You're writing, you're putting your notes in your iPhone. What's one thing that you've developed in the last, let's say, couple weeks that you think that you haven't broached a stage with? Well, you went last night, so I mean, maybe did you try any new material last night?
Majority of what I tried last night was new. That's one thing I do challenge myself for every time I go. At least I want to have half of it to be new premises to try, and then the other half I try stuff that I've done in the past, but maybe with a new tag or additional tags or reworded polishing. But for the most part, I try to come in with whatever was funny. It's very challenging sometimes, very stressful, and then other times I'll be in the shower and it just pops in my head, and I'm like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't want that to pop in my head. Go ahead.
I can't get it out.
Yeah,
I'll send you a link for that after.
The belly flop, no problem. The shower,
no tops, but definitely bottoms.
Yeah, exactly. So what, was there something on last night that kind of resonated that you thought, hey, look, this was pretty good? That may hold on.
So I went offshore fishing for the first time down in Port O'Connor. Last week.
Saw the video.
Last weekend we went down Thursday and fished Friday.
Your beard was a lot longer then, right? Or no?
No.
Okay.
Just it was flopping in the wind a little more.
Yeah.
But one thought I had on the boat, this is my first time going offshore fishing, and we pull up to an oil rig just shortly offshore, and we grabbed bait. We caught some bait and took it out, and I was thinking this must be what white trash people describe alien abductions, because we grabbed these fish and then we took them 50 miles out and dropped them right in front of the amberjacks. That's like getting picked up in South Tyler and dropped off in South Longview. That's a very, very different thing. And that's, just as simple as that. That thought I had of grabbing these fish and taking them away. This has got to be like an alien abduction to these fish, and then putting them in the worst possible place that they do not want to be. Yeah. And it worked amazingly. We got some amberjacks hooked up, and there was no anal probing. That wasn't necessary. But we took the hook and put it.
South Longview is
not where you want to be dropped off.
Yeah, exactly.
That one was a new one I tried. Cool. That's still under construction. And the more I do it and the more I think about it, then we'll get a couple of more tags, and it'll either turn into maybe a 3-minute bit, or it'll go into the pile, and I'll come back to it a year later and fresh mind and look at it again.
Right.
Can I tell you one of my favorites now?
Please.
One of my favorites to open with is guys, please, if you would bear with me. I do have horrible stage fright.
Okay.
It's not so much the public speaking. I think I have that figured out. It's just a general fear of the stage. I think it has something to do with my uncle being murdered by a stage 4 cancer.
Oh my God.
Nice little twist there. I like that one.
That one's pretty rough.
Yeah. It sets the tone very, very well.
Great, good stuff.
So what do you got cooking?
Well, so I kind of an experience today. Like, so I have
Today?
Yeah.
New material today.
So,
Okay, great.
Well, so like I have like,
I've had this like kind of throwaway joke about it's just like have you ever like been in the grocery store and like seen an ass so nice you're like I should go back to church, like you know, like it just you're like oh, praise God for that, you know, just something in a Lululemon, and it's special. And then today I was at the Dollar General Market around the corner from the house over in White House, and
Damn, your accent just came out. Like,
yeah, over the house.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta say that we were talking about the Dollar General. But I'm East Texas born and bred.
Right, for sure.
But yeah, so I was sitting in the parking lot, and I was looking at something on my phone and that kind of thing, and I looked up, and like this lady walked past, and she's just wearing like yoga pants, and it's good, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then like she stops. And then like looks at me, and I was like, "Oh, I got caught! Oh, I got caught!" And I'm like, I didn't think I was being too lecherous in this.
You didn't wear sunglasses?
No. I had my hat down, and I was just like,
And like, you got brown eyes, man. They can see that.
I know. And I was like, damn. And then like they like stopped and looked, and I was like, oh no, I'm a creep. And then it was my cousin, and it was a great moment. And then I hadn't seen her in a while.
Yeah.
Cousin-in-law.
Right.
Shout out Janelle.
And you were like,
sorry.
hey, I think I saw. I thought
I
that
know,
was you.
but like I'm like, okay, this is gonna make Thanksgiving weird, because I'm just like again, cousin-in-law. It's not my blood, but like and I respect my cousin Matthew. But also
Good job, Matthew.
his wife is smoking hot, and that's not my fault. All right, and I did. So I was checking out my cousin earlier at the Dollar General, and that seems consistent with my upbringing.
That tracks with Dollar General.
The Dollar General, you were like, yeah, you're going to see a hot cousin from here and there. I don't know. So I had that kind of joke from before that was just kind of like nothing, and now I was like, oh, good. It's sort of the things that's I think helpful to me about comedy. You're like, oh, I had an embarrassing moment. Fantastic. I could like write this down.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm kind of playing around with that, but yeah, it's constant.
Right.
I find it's easier to commit to a joke if there's truth embedded in it.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It is much easier to stand on stage.
Yeah,
And
I had a funny thing happen to me. So this week we were looking at some new properties for what I do, and I pull up, and it's like this failing business that we're looking to possibly purchase the property. And I pull up, and this gentleman meets me and kind of gives me the tour, which is nice. And he you could tell he was kind of like not an employee, but kind of below that, kind of a maintenance individual. And he's showing me this property like he's a real estate agent. He's kind of showing me the corners of the building and how big he's well versed. And then I'm about to leave, and I was telling him like, hey, my company's thinking about buying this place. And then he gives me his business plan on how they're going to keep it open. Like he's not in the same stratosphere as the owner, right? And I'm like, oh man, he's giving me specifics and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, hey, this guy's going to keep it alive. And I'm like, all right, well, it's good to meet you, And then he cranks up a mower in the parking lot. And he's like just mowing the parking lot. I'm like, okay, great business plan.
Yeah.
Him and his partner are going to take it over, and he's going to run the business. What? Okay, yeah. You just got me. With a quick business plan. So I can be no banker, that's for sure.
So you've got a punchline and a couple tags there.
Yeah,
all right, I'll
for
see
sure.
you on Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so any other new material that you have, or anything that you're thinking about bringing up? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh no! I mean, it's the best. But no, I
think like a Kill Tony type of atmosphere would be great for Tyler. Like you bring people up, hey, give them 1 minute, bring them up, let them do 1 minute, And then after the minute, you just like,
Oh, then do the interview.
pin it, do some pinning. Like have a panel of like 4 or 5 established comedians. I know the persona of Kill Tony is kind of like a, hey, these people are getting famous over a 3-minute reel or a 2-minute reel or a 1-minute reel, but it'd be fun to have a 3 or 4 person panel, and some of them don't even say anything; they're just laughing.
I mean, I think that's a mix. Like you've got some people. Again, I think a lot of it's kind of sour grapes. It's like, if somebody gets famous, good for you.
But I mean,
like that's awesome.
A couple times a month, it would be a great business opportunity for Tyler to do something similar. Bring people up, let them have fun. Needle them a little bit, let them needle you. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself, bring out your girlfriend, all the like showistic type stuff. And then you create, a couple like viral type things that are fun.
We're trying to do more of that stuff with like the Cheese and Fest like production company. I don't know a bigger Kill Tony fan than Tony Robinson, to be honest, the woman in charge of.
I think it's doable in this type of atmosphere. Yeah. You have a panel of 3 or 4, you're laughing, you're joking, you're bringing up people, and instead of doing an improv where it's open mic, or not an improv, sorry, open mic, you do 1 minute, and then you have some fun with them, and hey, so it would be instantly funny. Fun. It wouldn't be the same old, like, hey, here's an open mic where everybody's kind of anticipating like what's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna tell jokes and you're gonna laugh.
Well, I mean, Kill Tony is basically the coolest open mic that exists.
100%.
I mean, it's really.
But it's duplicatable, is my point.
Well, I'll say this: for comedy, you don't want to duplicate too much because that's where like if you say a joke that sounds a little bit like somebody else's, they're like, you're a hack, you stole that joke, you're a joke thief. Talk to Carlos Mencia about how that
for sure. But I mean, if you're just kind of having fun and asking them where they're from, and then if the construct was similar.
Oh yeah, I mean, like he didn't invent a panel format necessarily, but it's like that all the things that like Tony Hitchcock put together for that show, like is what makes it special.
And it's also been going for 10 years to get that cult following that it has. I mean, it's not like an overnight success.
It's cool they can fill Madison Square Garden
now. Yes. It took time to get
especially
there.
when you have Dr. Phil.
Oh yeah,
that guy's so talented.
Like Tony's. I know that's a dream of hers is to get him and some of those kinds of big names here in town for sure and stuff like that, which is doable. And I honestly think that is going to be something that happens in the coming years here. Is we're going to have those up there. And I mean, Black Hawk Creek over in White House just had Tim Meadows.
They did. Yeah, that's right.
Chad Prather came. Fox News guys, not my vibe. And then John Reed, who's very funny. He was the guy who's like got a hit in it. I remember that ad from Dodge back in the day. That was that guy. Ladies Man just came here. Megan King and Sylvia McAllen just opened for him. They're 2 really funny ladies out of Dallas. There's
definitely
a lot
an exciting time for East Texas comedy. I think
sounds like fun.
It's getting competitive. All kinds of fun.
There's a lot more exposure of the local community, just in general.
And people really, I don't know, like the locals, just as far as the audience members and stuff like that, people want stuff to do.
For sure.
I think for a long time in Tyler, like people were like, oh, there's nothing to do here. I'm like, that's crazy. There's so much stuff to come and doing, and there's so many creative people that are so eager to do different things. It's like we've got comics, we've got.
Tyler's a pretty warm audience. It's got pretty open for the most part for doing things, and it's part of the reason why I'm doing this. Like I started doing bourbon sampling or like alcohol sampling, we'll just call it spirits sampling, and I did it during COVID, and it was very popular because people wanted something to do during COVID, and the one thing you could do is like go to a bar, and yes, you were supposed to have it like a third of what it should have been, but nobody did that. So everybody was doing their own
We're in
thing.
Texas and we're in Tyler.
Yes.
Sorry.
And so,
You're like, ain't no COVID here.
I was having 40, 50 people come to sampling. And it was great. It was really fun. It was interesting and it was lucrative. I mean, I wasn't making piles, but it was like pretty fun and it was entertaining and stuff like that. Well, when COVID kind of subsided, everybody went back to full-time cheerleading, full-time soccer, baseball. Let's go visit grandma, grandpa. Let's go on trips. All that stuff went back, and the samplings that were at the time, it was like 30 to 40. It went down to like 10 and 12. Then it got down to 6. And then here we are. Podcast was kind of the Spirit Squared kind of manifests itself, and I wrangled Josh in, and now he's stuck with me. So
Way to go, Josh. Josh has been killing it this whole time.
Yeah,
by the way.
yes.
I don't know if he's really being captured.
No,
He's
yeah,
doing amazing work over there.
He does a great job, man.
I mean,
It's
the
like,
back of his phone is really just interesting to look at. What is
for
that
sure.
case? Are those cupcakes?
Oh, they're pumpkins.
Oh, pumpkins!
Yeah.
Seasonal
He's got a little girl.
case.
He's got a little girl. So
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah,
keep her-
deep inside of it. And I see that in the pumpkin case. Yeah,
For
special.
sure.
It's special.
all right. So I finish out all my podcasts with shout outs. Anybody that you guys feel like are mentors or somebody who kind of gave you a leg up, or it could be somebody you want to appreciate publicly that maybe doesn't get the appreciation that they normally or would ever expect. And remember, like the great thing about our podcast that I love is that with Spotify, like you can basically click and you can text the whole podcast, and you can say, hey, look, so and so, I gave you props. Listen to this podcast, and I hope you love it. And you were a big impact in my life. So, not any pressure, no pressure.
My shout out would just be my friends and family because they hear everything.
Yeah.
They hear all of my jokes, and especially the family. They hear them over and over and over, and they still support me and allow me to go try and show up when I need them to.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat that, even though the Humidor is a great place too. I stop in here a lot after lunch for a cigar, and I'll try some premises on some of the regulars, and it is a very judgment-free spot, which I love. If the premise doesn't work, they just carry on in conversation. They don't beat you down, and if it does, you get a response from them. That is a wonderful spot. You can catch me in here some days during the week, just trying premises. Once I think it's the ADHD. Once I get excited about something, that becomes my personality. Yeah. So I will talk anybody and everybody's ear off.
Yeah, see, I need judgment. I grew up Baptist. I feel safe in it, you know? That's that. I don't know. I mean, like my girlfriend is obviously wonderfully supportive. Like she's awesome. Look at her, you're the best. I don't know. But no. And I've mentioned a bunch of comics and stuff like that. One I haven't mentioned though.
Oh, they're gonna get their feelings hurt if you don't mention
Oh, they do. They are so sensitive little babies.
Yeah.
Comics are so touchy because we want to be seen.
Did
I'm the
you
same way.
tell them that you were giving on a podcast?
No.
They should know.
Oh, they will be so mad. They're like, why didn't I get it?
Yeah.
Like here, it was like, because you're not good enough. No, like it is. I mean, I do the same thing. I was like, why didn't I get asked to do that? You know, like you gotta get out of your head. Joey Savage. Is kind of the patron saint of comedy here in Tyler. She's been doing it a long time.
She is great. She's a great person.
She's very funny comic. She's in her 60s, so she used to come and listen to all these people mention that she's old a lot, and that's super annoying.
How old is she?
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of her bits. But she's fantastic. Honestly, she comes to almost every show. She supports every comic in town, and when I felt kind of low about comedy or had issues or anything like that, Joey's around. And she's just the sweetest person in the world. And I
really appreciate her support, and I guess, I don't know, she just loves recklessly, and is super supportive of everybody.
Obviously.
And just I know. Yeah, no, she's in a very motherly way, a real skank when it comes to supporting people. She just
sounds like it.
She puts out love and positivity everywhere she goes. She gets around. But I'm not. Joey won't do anything to you. All right.
Cool.
I'm sorry.
It's
Anyway,
cool.
but yeah, no, she's the best, and so I'm glad to have her as part of our community.
Well, hey, appreciate you guys coming on. It's been a blast. It's I don't know how long we've been going, but I mean it's been pretty fun, man. It's really been fun. I have a couple shout outs. Obviously my wife lets me do this, and she kind of is like, I don't know how the heck you do it, but you do it, and I like it, so obviously it should be good. And she only listens to the retired homicide detective because she likes.
She's a white lady. White ladies love murder.
Exactly. But I was looking forward to this one for sure. You guys fulfilled all the needs I needed with the comedic stuff because I love public speaking, but I find myself funny, but sometimes like too serious. So I like the lighter side of things for sure. All my sponsors, obviously, want to shout out to all of those. We got 2 more this last month, and they're great. Great people. All of them are great people. I already gave you guys praise, and your wives are even better than you. So thank you. I'll just be comedian on that. Our next podcast is with Camp Tyler, so it's going to be a little more serious. Camp Tyler's a great place, and I cannot wait to get to know more about who they are and all that good stuff. We're over a year old, and we're already booked out till June of next year with guests, all kinds, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and then we've got some distillers and some distributors and all that kind of stuff. Some fun stuff coming, especially towards Q4, and then next year we've got some great stuff coming. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great one. All right.
Just
How'd we
over
do?
an hour and a half.
That was a lot. I knew it was a lot.
I'm sorry.
No.
So I brought PJ so that he would fill the air.
I do. I'm filled with hot air.
I don't want to hit you.